Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another installment of MSP Webinars. I know it's a weird time. I know this is a weird background, but we have to do things a little differently today. Today we have Jamie from Invarosoft joining us to educate us on his software tool. And I'm just going to come right out and say, I find it to be a product that's very similar to Desk Director. Now, I know Jamie, he owns the product, so he wouldn't say things like that. But it's it's a client portal application. So I will let Jamie educate you guys more on that, and he'll also introduce you to his guest. And as always, it says chat is private. I need to fix that. So chat is not private, and everyone. As always, you leave questions in the chat, and we'll go from there. Thanks very much, guys. Jamie, please take it away.
Thank you, Steve, and pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I guess I'll get here with the presentation. Thank you to you and to Andrew, who is one of our partners, for joining today, and of course all the attendees that have made the effort. I'm sure we'll make it a riveting experience for you, and hopefully you'll be able to take a few gold nuggets away at the very least to help your MSP. So very much appreciate that. It would be good at the start of the presentation just to, if the MSPs on attendance would like to put in a couple of data points, which would be quite interesting just to understand as we go through the presentation, and I can try and tailor what I'm talking about in relation to that. So if you want to, you don't need to, but if you want to, which would be helpful, if you could jot down how many managed support clients you've got, so that the clients are actually paying a monthly fee, how many desktops and laptops you have under management, and certainly how many tickets a day you're getting. That would be quite helpful. So to kickstart the agenda for today, I will be talking about the Invarosoft story, how we came to be, and we'll be talking about the problem that we were solving at the time, the solution that we came up with, the ROI. We'll also spend a bit of time speaking to Andrew, who will give you a bit of commentary around his implementation of the software. We'll do a live demo, and whilst Q&A is at the bottom of that list, of course, feel free to ask questions all the way through, and Steve will moderate that and ensure that I am alerted to any pressing questions that you have through the presentation. So the first thing I should say is that yes, we are a competitor to Desk Director. So hopefully that makes it clear that this particular segment of the market is an important one. Now, Invarosoft as a company was founded in 2017, and so we've invented the latest client portal app for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. We actually have a patent pending, would you believe? And our products include IT Support Panel, IT News Panel, and IT Apps Panel, which you can see at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, the logo's there. And this year we're a finalist in the Australasian Startup Awards. As you can tell from my accent, I'm obviously from Australia, but was born in New Zealand, so the double threat. Now, a little bit about me, just so you understand where I'm coming from. I actually founded an MSP in eNerds in 2000, age 22. So I think it's point to note that being an MSP and living and breathing being an MSP is very much in my DNA. I've never actually had another full-time job other than being an MSP. So any questions you have, I'm sure I'll be able to answer, and certainly sympathize with all the things, all the issues and the experiences that we have along the journey of building this type of business. So we've managed to build it up organically, so no acquisitions, to 7 million in revenue and 40 staff. We've got 5,000 desktops, laptops under management. I've taken the role of chairman of the board while I focused as CEO of Invarosoft. We've sort of got the business to a size where we've got a stable management team. My brother is actually part of the MSP, so it makes it even easier. eNerds has achieved a few little wins over the years. We've been named SMB IT Partner of the Year the last 3 years, which is a nice little win. And we've been in the MSP Mentor 501 from 2011 to 2017. And I was on the MSP Mentor 250 list, which was a nice little honor to be a part of. So just to give you a bit of the history of how this particular product came about, way back in 2009, my MSP had got to the point where at that stage, I'd say we had about 20, 22 staff. We were still getting about 75 tickets a day. And interestingly, most of those tickets were actually coming through over the phone. And so it was becoming an issue around productivity. And I was finding in my MSP, and some of the ones on the webinar might sympathize, is that you get to a certain size and you start to really, you really need to implement processes in place to improve productivity. And my staff were constantly saying, we don't have enough staff, we need more staff to handle the workload. And I was looking at the numbers thinking, well, hang on, it doesn't make sense to be hiring more and more people. It's a point to note that in Australia, labour costs are actually quite high. So the thought of doing that at the time was troubling to me. So that was the problem that we were faced. And in search of an actual solution, we realised that we started reflecting on how people actually engage. So if you think about the fact that they were really just calling us for the most part, we started thinking, well, how can we make sure that how can we reduce phone calls and increase productivity in that regard? And we started reflecting around onboarding new clients as well. So, you know, when you guys and when we all sign up a client, so let's say we're lucky enough, we're in November now, and we signed up a client that was starting 1st of December. What do you actually do when you start providing your support services on day one? Okay, so do you send out mouse pads and squeezy balls and pens or stickers across all the devices so that all of the users of the new company know who you are? So let's say that company has 20 staff. You might have done a deal with the business owner, so that person knows who you are. Maybe their second in charge knows who you are, but the other 18 people haven't got a clue. So on the first day of support, it seems a little unclear. And so, and this is back in 2009. So we basically found that that just seemed a little too 1990s. You know, there has to be a better way of actually engaging with the customers, and so we also thought, well, there's not really much visible value there. A lot of that stuff we talk about, stickers and all those sort of things, they're perishable and they can be lost and so on. So we were really striving for a better experience. So I guess the next thing that we then thought of was like, well, why don't they use the web portal? And what we realized is that it really comes down to a behavioral issue. So effectively, the end user doesn't know where to go in terms of web portals. It's very hard to have that web address standardized across every device. And remember, across your clients, users are coming in and out all the time. So effectively, we realized, well, it's probably more of a behavioral thing that they're not using the web portal, because even if they find it, they don't know what their login details are to get in there. So, you know, people are like water. They'll go down a mountain the easiest way to get to where they need to go. And so phone calls is one of the things that was the easiest thing that they could do. So, you know, email, a lot of you might be thinking, well, I get a lot of email, and email is the alternative in terms of online getting the actual tickets, and it works. But it's not great. And the reason why it isn't great is because you don't often get all the information that you need. You're often having to go back and forth in terms of clarifying points of what they're trying to ask for. And of course, it doesn't fill in the fields of the ticket in your PSA. Therefore, you just spend more time doing admin around logging the ticket. So basically, and the other point, I guess, about phone calls is that, you know, there's a lot of wasted time around the edges of a phone call. You know, it's great customer service. They get to speak to someone straight away. But at the end of the day, when you're in a business that is time orientated, it's the time around the edges of the call that incrementally over time start etching away at your productivity. And as you scale an MSP, you know, the more you grow, the more tickets you get, and the more work that you've got to do. So any way that you can try and get the most productivity out of the capacity that you've got is super important. Now, I just want to clarify, Steve, it says Andrew's the presenter. Are you guys still seeing my presentation?
I'm not.
Steve, are you there? Okay, so I'm now the presenter again. So sorry, guys. Hopefully you can see that presentation. So that's all right.
I do not see a presentation.
Do you see it now?
Nope.
Share window screen, share.
There we go.
There we go. Yep. So I think it popped out slightly there as I was talking. So we can see that. So that was what I was talking about in terms of the poor customer experience, onboarding clients, the stickers and the visible value, so the better experience. And certainly in terms of learning about what's the behavioral issue that they don't use web portals and why email is frustrating. So that's what I was talking about there. And I guess the third thing that I was just touching on is the engineer productivity. So every time we were realizing that an engineer has to fill in the ticket type. So if you get an email, you got to fill in the ticket types of the actual ticket and set it all up in the PSA incrementally, even if it's just 60 seconds, even if it's 2 minutes that you spend every time, every day, every ticket of a year doing that, incrementally, it does affect your productivity. So we found that if, and the calculation that I've got there about $50,000 a year, we realized, well, if we're spending about 5 minutes a ticket either on the phone or if it comes in on an email and we have to go back and forth and confirm it and fill in the ticket types, if you do 5 minutes by 8 hours, the number of tickets a day, which we averaged at 15 tickets. So 5 minutes times 15 tickets times 260 days times an average hourly rate of $150 an hour. You can start to really understand that there is a lot of lost productivity. And if you translate it to your normal charge out rates, it is quite valuable. So over time, as you grow, it's super important to try and improve productivity, get the most out of the capacity that you've got, and so that you can be more profitable. And this comes into effect in terms of, it comes in waves in terms of growth. So when we were 5 staff, obviously you're getting less tickets. When we hit sort of 10, 15 staff, you're starting to notice a big difference. At 20, 22 staff, we're getting up to the 75 tickets. Now with 40 staff, we're getting about 100, 110 tickets every single day. So productivity is a big part of the piece. So the solution, we decided to build an app in 2009, and it was an interesting experience. A lot of the benefits we'll be talking about today, I'd like to say we had foresight into knowing that they would all come out of the product, but of course we were really just trying to reduce phone calls and improve productivity and improve the customer experience. And so we basically built IT support panel, and we see it as that powerful app that your clients can use to access all of your IT systems. So when we were at we were just at IT Nation, and Arnie Bellini for ConnectWise was talking about the fact that his PSA, he wants to see it as that one pane of glass for the end customer, or for the MSP. We would like to see our product to be that one pane of glass for the end user. And so we kind of see this as the missing piece of the MSP stack, and certainly where we believe IT support should go, and we're sort of talking about it as IT support 2.0. So I guess the big thing about our product is that you can customize the brand, the logo, the buttons, the news, and the apps per client and down to per user. So you have complete configurability to be able to customize it per client. So the news feature that you see there is basically a rotation news. So it flicks through news articles and links to URLs. So it's wonderful to be able to increase engagement with your services. One of the issue with being an MSP is that we often can only really communicate to the main contact of our clients. So if you want to send out information, it tends to be just to them. With News Panel, now let's say you've got 500 desktops, laptops under management, and you've got, say, 50 clients. So instead of speaking to 50 people, you can now get 500 eyeballs starting to read your news, starting to read the updates, and so on and so forth about your business. And remember, you can customize that per client. So if you're doing a network upgrade for a client, then you can actually customize the news for them for a period of time, explaining to all the users what's going on. And then after that's done, turn it off and go back to the standardized news across all clients. The IT apps panel is the section down the bottom. A lot of people get confused by it. Basically, the problem we were solving there is that in this day and age, the desktop with all the icons on it is getting quite messy. And certainly because of the fact that there's SaaS apps that are all in the browser and then need to be bookmarked, and you've got network apps, Citrix and terminal services and the like. So what we were solving there was being able to say to a client, look, it's becoming messy. I will add more value to you by being able to add these apps in our nice panel. It means that your staff just need to remember to go to the IT button. They can access all of their apps. Those are basically just pathways to get to the app. So you can do URL, command line, and Citrix and terminal services, RDS, etc., linking through. But what it does is makes the app incredibly sticky for the customer. And again, you can customize these apps per client down to per user. So we've found that that's tremendously sticky and ensures that you get, again, more people using the app over and over and over again.
So I just want to stop you right here.
Go for it.
And I see that you're about to tell us how it works on like everything. All right,
Yep.
so it's very sticky. It all they got to do is hit the green IT button or whatever color it is. If I rebrand it to my own colors, how do they find it on their messy desktop?
So on the desktop, it's in the task tray and on the desktop itself.
Okay.
So I guess the concept is you've got the two locations. Some of you might be thinking, well, it's difficult to have the icon in the task tray and appear. It is actually very difficult with Microsoft to force it to be next to the clock, so you don't have to click the little arrow in the task tray. But what we've found is that the more you utilize it, it actually starts to slide down into that area anyway and stays there. So that's an important part of driving behavior that I'll talk about in a second.
And so let's you said instead of having to reach out to 50 people, 50 clients, you can get your news in front of all 500 eyes. That just sounds unbelievable to me, only because I know my end users and they're stuck in their ways. I'm trying to find really nice ways to call them really mean things, but they're very stuck in their ways. They're probably older. They're not computer savvy, so they've spent the last 5 years always clicking the start button or always clicking that icon that's already on their desktop. And I've got some clients where they've actually got the mess of icons organized in a very specific way on the desktop so they can always find their stuff. How do you break them of their habit and get them to actually use this thing? Because right now all we're seeing is some tool that we don't think our end users are going to use for a price, any price, because you haven't even said the price, that we don't feel like we need to spend yet.
Look, it's a fantastic question. I've got a whole slide on it, so I'll get to that one in a second, but it is a great question. And it was, at the end of the day, at the time when we built this software, I guess we probably had around 2,500 devices under management, so it wasn't tiny. And it was one of the learning experiences that we went through. And so it's been a long time now. We've learned a lot about what it actually takes. Our first iteration of the software didn't look like this. And we learned a lot of things.
Okay.
But I can tell you that being an MSP around for 17 years, I mean, I've got the full gamut of clients that have the full spectrum of skill set, if that's the nice way of saying it. We've got, I think one of the best IT support requests I got was they called in and said, look, I've got an issue. And we said, okay, so what's the issue related to? I don't know, I've just got an issue. So, I mean, we've had the full gamut. Now, the thing is, surprisingly, despite all of that, the utilization is extremely high. And I'll explain that in a second. It's a fantastic question. And certainly was one of the things that we were worried about when we first built it. So I guess just going through, and I'll get to that in probably about 2 or 3 slides. So it's across all devices. It looks like that across all devices. Okay, so if you're thinking,
so even on my iPhone, it's going to look
it looks
like
exactly
this.
like that. On iPhone and Android, you won't see apps panel because it's a wee bit redundant in terms of launching apps from your phone. But certainly the rest of it, with news, flicking through, linking to URLs, all that sort of jazz, it all works and looks the same, which is fantastic. So I guess that concept of one pane of glass, you've got to start thinking about a panel like this as being that one destination. All of these vendors that you're potentially using, your IT Glues, your BrightGauge, your YSync, all these guys are creating customer portals. But they're all experiencing the same problem where the customer doesn't know where to get to. And imagine the poor old customer, they're like, you as an IT provider going, well, I've got the PSA portal, I've got the IT Glue portal, I've got the BrightGauge dashboard that you can see for your client. I mean, it's getting to a point where if you want to start providing all of those things to a client, you actually do need one destination to go to. Otherwise, no one's ever going to watch them. And so how we see our product, more than just being able to have your own app across all these devices, is to be able to customize it so that it really starts to deliver everything that you're providing. So we've got partners that are creating dedicated pages for clients in IT Glue, and they're creating buttons, and they're just allocating that button collection to clients. You'll understand this a lot more when I go through the demo and show you the portal. BrightGauge has its own dashboards that actually for clients, so they can see the productivity, and it's that visible representation of the work you're doing. Again, if it's just a URL, they don't know where to go to. So you've got to start getting your mind thinking about, how could I customize an app like this to deliver the full awesomeness that is makes up your MSP. And over time, we will be looking at proper, more detailed integrations with some of that software where it really starts to deliver even more value. But at the heart of it, the buttons that you see in the support and general section, for the most part, URLs, and you can link to wherever you need to get to. So the adoption, we got there. Here's the thing about adoption, and we have learnt this. We learned it the hard way, but it didn't take long to fix, which was amazing. And now we really do know the secret sauce to being able to do this. It's a common question we get. Oh, the users, they're stuck in their ways, they do their thing, and they'll never know how to get there. Well, I'm sorry to tell everybody out there is that it's an app world, and users love apps. I mean, we have had probably the biggest technology transition from, flip phones to smartphones and touch screens that we've seen. Apple's now the most valuable company on the planet, delivering a way in which to interact that is completely different. And they have paved the way, and all the smartphones have, for end users being comfortable with using apps. Okay, so the first thing you got to understand is that we as people were not yelling at Steve Jobs to build a smartphone and have touch buttons and make it easier for us. But of course, when he delivered it to us, the story is there for all to see of the success of that industry. Now, I've just been kicked off as presenter again, so am I able to get back on?
Over and over and over in the chat.
Oh, I see.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So I'll just share screen. Can we all see it?
Yes.
Cool. So the first thing we learned to summarize all of that is that users love apps, but it starts with the icon. So one of the fatal mistakes that a lot of MSPs make, and I don't believe has been identified by really anybody out there, so don't tell anybody, I'm sure this won't go on the internet, is that you need to have a button that is identifiable to the end user. Most RMM tools that have basic ticket logging features and the like, and I think others that are out there, enable you to actually change the icon. But I'm sorry, most of our icons, most of the little images that we will have when you've only got a tiny amount of pixels to use in the task tray, for example, are just not identifiable. They're hard to train and hard to recognize. And so what we learned early on is that you need a button that is identifiable. It all starts with the button. And so when you start your training to say, go to a green IT button, it's green because green is on. Okay, when it's off, if it's offline, the internet's offline, it goes red. If there's an issue with something else, it can go yellow. But ultimately, green is on. And an IT button is probably one of the most recognizable, easiest things that end users that we all love will be able to identify. And that is probably the first part of making sure that users use it. And of course, once they do, they start loving it because it's an app like every other app they've used. So that's the first thing that you need to do, which why, in fact, with our software, you can't change that IT button. That is the button. But we know from experience, if you try and do anything else, you will not get the value, which is the reduction of calls and some of the other things I'll talk about in a second. Secondly, when you open the app, you obviously can't log in. So I'll talk about deployment in a second, but the whole point of our app is that it just opens, it's authenticated, they can just start using it and they can start logging tickets. When they log a ticket, it's all authenticated down to the user level, so we know who they are. It's putting all their information into the ticket. And so the no login means no friction. No friction means adoption.
And just to clarify, that button cannot be customized.
The IT button can't, but obviously the rest of the panel can. Okay. And in the one of the releases coming up, you'll be able to change the colors of that IT button in the actual panel. But the IT button on the desktop in the task tray at this point in time is not changeable. Because we want to make sure that you get the value out of the product. It is just one of the lessons we've learned over time. And if you try and fight it, you're just going to create confusion. And when you're talking hundreds of users that are constantly changing in and out of your clients all the time, you just cannot be vague around an obscure icon with, funny colors and so on, especially because they're so small. So it needs to be easy to use, and we've designed it to look like an app because it's an app world. People love apps. I really do think it's a sad state of affairs that as IT providers, we are supposed to be the bastions of forward thinkingness, and we're supposed to be proactive with technology, and yet we are still asking our valued clients to only interact with us via web portals and email and phone for the most part. And so you give these people an app and they love it. And that is from my experience, but also from our partners as well. What you've also got to do is make sure that you train the main contact when you deploy it. So as long as you get the advocacy of the main contact, then they will obviously, of your clients, they'll obviously help you to distribute the information on how to do it. We have training emails that we can give you, that you can templated emails that you can give to your clients. You send that out. But what you find is once they start realizing, oh, it's just the IT button, they will actually start chasing you down. If you reload a PC or a laptop and you forget to put the software back on it, they will actually chase you down saying, where's my IT button? It gets that intense in terms of the user adoption. Of course, we did it, and some MSPs are doing this. They're creating actual training videos that you can send out to clients. And of course, you could create a button on your panel that actually has the training video. So once they actually go there, they can watch a video and learn about your services and learn about the product. Remember, when new staff come on board of your clients, they don't really know who you are. And unless the main contact, which of course they probably won't do all the time, trains them specifically on how to access your services and what your value is, then there's often a bit of a knowledge gap there in regards to those end users. So training videos, I think, are super important. If you're not doing it in terms of your overall service, so I'm talking about a video that actually says, welcome to our services, these are our hours of operation, this is how you can contact us. It's something that I don't notice many MSPs do, but we've found that it is absolutely fantastic in terms of training people on your services, and actually makes you look more sophisticated because you've gone to the effort of creating it. So when you combine all of those things, we've found that the adoption is extremely high, which is why very quickly our phone calls reduced. Does that answer your question, Steve?
No, I'm getting sick, so I had to cough.
But does that sort of answer your question? Any more thoughts on?
I'm so sorry. I thought
on
you said,
adoption
can
and
I answer your question? Yes, I think that's starting to, yes. Now, someone asked if it's fair to say that this IT support panel replaces the lab tech icon in the sys tray.
yes, it can ultimately. And if you feel that there's value with some of the things that LabTech can offer, then of course, if there's some features in there that you feel you still need, then worst case scenario, you can put it in the My Apps section and launch the app that way, and train whoever it is that you need to train to do that. So again, our product, whilst it's designed to be the one place for the end user to go to, so it replaces whatever you're doing there, it's certainly not designed to fundamentally replace the way you're doing things internally. So we're trying to make sure that you can really put whatever it is that you think is important for the end user in the app, and so that they can access it.
Now, so I see it does tickets. Let's start at the meat here. So I know it integrates with Autotask and ConnectWise, and the big thing I would like to think is the ticketing portion of the tool. How does it work? How does creating a ticket work?
So what I'll do is you guys will I'll hoon through this, and then we'll go through a demo of the actual system. So another good question, and one of the more common ones. So sorry to not be able to do it right this second, but I'll literally log into the portal and show you how that all works, and show you the app as well on my device. So again, Autotask and ConnectWise, currently we're adding PSAs next year. The way our product works is that we're not so heavily integrated with the PSAs, which our competitors are, and therefore it's easier for us to start adding more and more PSAs and more ticketing systems to the family. So our vision is to sort of see all ticketing systems connected into this particular app. How we differentiate in terms of the market, if people are wondering, well, what's the difference? Well, the way we see it is a beautiful looking app. Well, it's first version, so it's an app. In my view, it's beautiful, but it needs to look nice for users to use it, like I was saying before. It is a native app on all the devices, which is important. The per client user configuration is a major part of why this is successful. The more you do that per client, the stickier your services get, and therefore it becomes a wee bit harder for them to leave. The branding aspect is fantastic. You got to start thinking, well, I actually do support for a real estate agency with multiple sites, and they actually really love the idea of having their own brand on it. Great, create a different appearance for them and actually load it out there. Another use case that we found a lot of MSPs out there are actually doing the level 2, level 3 support for IT departments, and therefore or third-party services. And so basically being able to brand it for their customer, because they are intrinsically a white labeled support desk, is incredibly helpful and powerful as well. Being able to configure the buttons to whatever you need them to do, delete them, move them around. The news is incredibly powerful. The apps, it's an easy deployed. It takes time. It's easy, but it takes time and effort, don't get me wrong. And in terms of management of it, we believe it's quite easy as well. And of course, we think we've worked out the secret to reducing calls. We've had people come to us saying, well, I'm using the competitor, but I'm not reducing phone calls. Well, I've just talked to you about that, of why that is. And we believe we know how to get that outcome for you. In terms of deployment, you can use your RMM. We have an AD harvester software that basically you load across all your AD servers. It means that it's synchronizing those users in AD with our platform. They go into a holding area, and then you can choose to import those into your PSA. When you do the deployment in conjunction with the AD harvester and your RMM, it means that the users are pre-authenticated. And one of the things I'll say about deployment, and so it actually does come down to adoption and friction. If you roll out a piece of software like this and the end user has to log in, then of course you're going to get friction. And users aren't going to do any additional work than they need to. So one of the critical things you need to do is to be able to roll it out. And on the day, we remember the example I gave at the start of this was just, well, I'm going to start doing support for an MSP, for a client on the 1st of December. On the 1st of December, those users must just see their green IT button, and it must just start working for them. You don't have to do that, but that is how you get maximum utilization and success. If you don't have an RMM tool, of course, you can use group policy. We've got the MSI option there. And of course, we do deployment training, and that's all included, no charge, to really get you going and make sure that you get this working across the clients that you need. So the result for us and our MSP was that very much so you will reduce calls by up to 50%, absolutely. You get increased capacity and profit by being able to get better utilization out of your engineers, and the engineer productivity goes up, which is fantastic. You basically reduce churn because you're delivering visible value. You're showing that you're an innovative provider and you're giving them a step up in terms of the experience. That therefore makes the client a lot happier. Your NPS score, if you're doing that, or your CSAT, your customer satisfaction scores, will go up because it's a tool that they're using. And of course, we very much use this tool to differentiate ourselves and win support deals. In a very cluttered market, it has to be said that we're all, for the most part, using the same tools, the same PSAs, same RMM, the same everything. We're actually selling the same services. We're all doing Office 365. You've got to put yourself in the shoes of the end customer. It is really difficult to discern between providers. Now, the school of thought is, of course, that we're all selling trust, which is why we are ultimately just selling relationships. But you still need to be able to present your services in a way that is innovative, that is different, and that is memorable. And we talk about the concept by a guy that read a book, Seth Godin, The Purple Cow. If you haven't read it, I fundamentally believe you should. And he says that in this day and age, there's way too many messages. And if anything, all those messages sound the same. So how do you differentiate yourself? So since 2009, we've been using this product to differentiate our services. We're a big fan also of Simon Sinek, so selling the why first, and then you talk about your how. And so when you talk about the how, so the why, of course, is that we're all selling peace of mind, business continuity, cost containment, and so on. In terms of the how, that's where you can talk about innovative front-end things that you're giving the customer. And this is the sort of tool that takes away the darkness. A lot of customers come to you and they say, oh, I don't know what my network diagram is. My MSP is just, it seems like it's just a secret thing where, and there's a darkness. I just don't understand our environment or what's going on, etc. They don't know what their roadmap is. So by being able to actually have something visible, being able to use that in your sales pitch, put that in your marketing material, put that on your website, I cannot impress upon you enough how successful this has been for us. When we invented this product, we were about 3 million in revenue, and it has absolutely helped us scale to 7 million in revenue because it's a competitive environment, and the more you win, and that you will grow. But of course, if you can reduce your churn, then you will grow that wee bit faster. So a super important point that has to be said. So in terms of the investment, so we do it on agents. So we want to have a product that is based, our licensing, the way the product works is very much more like an RMM tool. It is agent based. And so we basically want to have packs of agents.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Is an agent a user, or is an agent one of the user's many devices?
It's a device. It's devices. Okay. So if you're using, a lot of your clients have terminal services or Citrix, then in that scenario, you only need one agent to cover them all. So effectively, the price starts at $249, goes up from there. Most of the MSP market is fundamentally in the $2,500 and below. So we are trying to make it affordable, but a lot of Steve has sort of told me some of the feedback out there in terms of price, in terms of our competitor, etc. The starting price is pretty much the same as the alternative. But one of the things I should say is that, of course, you shouldn't be investing in products purely because of price. I think we all know that. It should be about the ROI that you get. And certainly for us, we've positioned our pricing on delivering a 10x ROI. So a 10x ROI on the investment, which I'll explain in a second. And I guess in terms of the competition, in terms of where we're trying to go with the product, we do believe it adds more value, and therefore our pricing tends to reflect that. So if you're not getting a great ROI from this product, then certainly something needs to be addressed there. But the power of this is important. And I think the last thing I'll say there is, look, I do understand that out there's a lot of vendors, there's a lot of new products, there's a lot of all chipping away at the monthly spend as MSPs as part of your stack of software that you're using, and adding to cost. But we genuinely, hand on heart as an MSP, feel that this is a category that's not adequately addressed in the market, but is actually on par in terms of importance with your PSA and some of the other tools that you're using. It just simply isn't good enough anymore to offer basic email and phone support. We do believe, after so many years, it's why we spent 3 years building the product, that it is an app economy. Your users aren't telling you this because they don't know anything better, but once you give it to them, they realize, oh my God, this is so much easier to be able to interact with you. Thank you for taking away the darkness. Thank you for making my life easier. I didn't actually want to be on the phone to log change requests and the like. So it's an important part of the MSP software stack, and certainly I think the more you start to understand that you can customize that front end experience per client, I think that's where the magic happens. So I'm happy to answer any other questions on that.
So with that, I know that there's a couple people here that would like to just kind of see it in action.
Yep, let's do it.
Because they're still trying to figure out what the heck does this thing actually do. Slides do a lot for the business person in us, but remember,
Yep.
we're all nerds, okay?
Not a problem. We'll nerd it out in a second. So I've only got a couple of slides. So the ways you can get the ROI from this, it's just important to start with the business case first, and then we'll deep dive into the technical side. But you do need to think about this. So we charged our existing clients. It was ambitious. It was aggressive. Not a lot of MSPs will do that, but we did it. We won more support deals. We actually charged more. We increased our overall rates to factor in this new technology. So we had a good, better, best way of going about our services, and it enabled us to charge a little bit more in those packages. You can charge for mobile device management as well. That's an area where no one's ever been able to do it. But now that you actually have something visible on the mobile device that shows that value, then you can look to do things like that. You wouldn't charge a lot, but you can charge something for it. Increasing productivity with less phone calls, reducing client churn, and increasing the engineer productivity via less ticket logging they're all ways that you can get great ROIs of the product. And I can send you some more information on that. Our results, we went quite aggressive, because if you remember at the start, I was really trying to improve profit as we were scaling the business. We actually averaged about $100 per client per month. We customized it for them. They felt great about it. It was win-win. But when you've got 100 clients, well, at the time, sorry, it was about 85 clients we had. So we increased by about 100 grand a year, helped us grow in terms up to 7 million. Certainly absolutely reduced our calls by 50%. It was shocking, but it was not so much when you understand the behavioral change that you were making. Reduced client churn significantly, increased our engineer productivity. We absolutely increased the NPS score, and we do have 5,000 users that use the product. The current roadmap, I will pause there and get into that. So let's get into the actual product.
And you said that you keep saying this reduced calls by 50%.
Yep.
Did it reduce tickets?
So it doesn't reduce your tickets. So that has to be said. But the time, as I said to you, that you spend on the phone with someone, hello, did you have a nice day? Yes, the weather was great. At scale, that is just wasted time. The time that you spend getting email tickets and then actually going type, subtype, configuring the details in the ticket at scale is a waste of time. And so what we also found is that if an engineer, when you're on the phone, you can only focus on one thing at a time, right? So you're very much in the conversation that you're having over the phone. And so we found that the more that you could get your teams working on tickets that are coming in remotely in this way over the internet through the app, the more that they could multitask through the tickets and the better capacity you could get.
Okay.
So look, we'll get stuck into having a look at it, and I'll cover some of the other points at the end. So this is the product. Can we all see that, Steve? Yep. So
great.
Here's the product open on my desktop, sorry.
Oh, I just said straight.
Yeah, so you basically, it opens up and you can see in this particular demo account, it looks the same as what's going on here in the account. Now, obviously, I've talked to you about the fact that this can be customized, that the logo, the colors, the buttons, the news, the apps, etc., can be customized per client, but it will show you your default. So intrinsically, you'll have a default setting for your branding, and so what it will show you on the front page is the default. So what we've actually built is a wizard, which is a step before this, which guides you through the process of setting it up. It connects it to your PSA and helps you set up all the different configurations. So once you've completed that particular wizard, this is where you'll end up. This is the portal where you manage the actual software. And so you can see we've tried to design it so it's reasonably simplistic, easy to understand, easy to use. And so I can start with, I'll start with the general concept of how the collections work, and then we'll work our way through to just the ticket logging and how you can configure that, etc. So conceptually, you've got to understand that it's all about collections, and in this instance, they're just a series of appearances. So the appearance that you're seeing there is this particular appearance, and you can see you can change, I could change the color. It's the top banner is the same, and easy to do. You can change the logo and so on and so forth. You can change the bottom and the top, however you want to lay that out. And as I say to you, we will be enabling you to change the color of the IT button in this section here so that it really does reflect your services. So what we can do is you can change the appearance. You refresh the icon. In terms of the auto refreshing and auto polling our services, it's all in Amazon in the US. It's probably 10 to 15 seconds. Now I've forced that change, and as you can see there, it's changed at the top of the screen. Okay.
Now, so would it have refreshed on its own without you forcing it?
Correct. So every 10, 15 seconds or the like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's constantly polling back, but what's actually happening is that it will store the information on the device itself, and therefore each time they open it, it's not having to pull that data down. So that's just a great visual representation of what actually is happening with these collections. So the concept is that you can change the default collection, and that will change the appearance. You can, as I said to you before, if you were to if you needed a client that wanted their appearance, you just create an appearance and then you assign it to the actual customer itself. Okay, so and you can get it down to per user. So if I go to buttons, does that make sense? Happy with that?
I feel like it makes sense. So
Yep.
just to clarify, where we were at was the part where you customize the look and feel.
Appearance, yep.
And in the appearance, can I have a different piece of news for each customer or end user?
Correct, and that's under your news panel. So I'll show you that one in a second. Correct, good question. So in terms of the buttons, this is where you've really got to get your imagination going in terms of the product itself. You can see here that you can copy button collections, assign and unassign, all that sort of jazz to make it easy. But again, one of the comments people say is, well, how does an end user actually get through and see my tickets? So if you're an AutoTask customer, you can actually create an auto login link per user. So you can create a button and actually put the URL, whatever that happens to be, in there. You could call it My Tickets or Ticket Management or whatever you want to call it. Add the button and move it up if you want to, and you can see all those changes happening on the left. And that's where you've got to start getting in your mind that, from experience, it's really only the main contacts that need to see invoices, that need to see your tickets and your PSA portals and all that sort of jazz. And so you can create a button collection for your main contact and just give it to them. And for all the general users in the business, they get the standard collection, which doesn't have links to do that type of thing. Okay, so really the buttons, it's up to your imagination on how you want to configure it per customer and how you want to configure it for what you're actually doing.
And with that said, we could even have, for those of us that have all these extra tools, we could have a button for IT Glue, a button for Connect Booster, whatever we want. We could even put that in the general area, right?
Correct. And so if I want to change where that particular section goes, you put it there, update the button, it drops down. I can then say, no, it's actually quite important. I want to add that up to the top, and so on. So really, it's the power there. Now, this the log ticket function, I'll get into that in a second.
Is there a size constraint, like how many buttons you can have?
Yeah, so 8 buttons in total at this point in
8
time.
buttons.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting
that's
longer.
similar. So is that up to 4 for support and 4 for general, or it doesn't matter as long as there's not more than 8?
Correct, the latter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter unless, yeah. So effectively, again, you can delete these things. Standard as part of it, you can have your contact details. Again, super helpful. If you are, some MSPs actually give dedicated phone numbers with their phone system to certain clients. So that's the sort of thing where with a client, you could put that dedicated number so that they're calling the number that you've been training them to do. Again, you're creating that button collection for the client. For the customer feedback, it's basically a form, sends that through to you as an email, and you get your feedback, which is great. I mean, the combination of this and obviously having your feedback, a lot of people are using Smileback in the actual ticket emails, is you need to have it everywhere. I don't think it's one area that solves all problems with feedback. You've just got to have those options everywhere. And so yeah, so basically the power really comes down to that customization. So I'd sort of leave you with sort of thinking about, well, how could I really customize that for each of the customers that I've got? And you would tend to roll it out a basic version first, and that's where you can really sit down and start to work out what is it that I want to do with each client. So I'll just wait for that to refresh. So you can see the self-help and all those changes have instantly happened. So you can see how quick it is, which is great.
And I missed that. Did you have to close and open it up again?
Yeah, so that's a good, well spotted. It won't refresh in this state. You have to just close it and then refresh it and it'll open.
So for the end users that leave it open and then they lock their screen and they go home for the day and then they come home, they come in the next day and it's still open.
It's a good point. In the sense that we've not experienced an issue with that. Most people don't want to have these things sitting around there. They're just natural inclination is just to get rid of that so they don't have a cluttered screen. So across all the users that use this product, I haven't had the feedback that's a drama at this point in time, but I guess we can monitor that. It's a good point. But I don't think it's an issue at this point in time. So I'll quickly go through for news panel. So this again, you're now starting to understand the collection. You've got default collections. I should have shown you that before with the buttons. You've got a default button collection, default appearance, and so everyone gets the default, and it's a hierarchical scenario. So it really starts at global level with defaults across all clients, then it goes client, user, and then agent. Okay, so you can configure the all of these collections down to an agent level as well as a user level. So effectively with your news, it is a collection of news. And so this is the example where you can, you've got your name and the description of what it's about, but you can have unlimited news articles, and each of the news articles can be configured with a URL. If you don't put one in, it just won't link the article to wherever you need to go. And certainly you can have a publish start date and end date for the news article as well. So if it's just fleeting news that you want to talk about and just stop, then you can do that. So that's how you basically create the articles. And when you think of it as a collection, you can then say, well, I'd have a default news for all clients, but then I need to, for client A, create a collection, assign it to the client, and move on.
And just to clarify, I can have more than one news article.
Unlimited news articles.
So, and they can like swipe through them or something?
So it basically is scrolling through the news articles after about 5 seconds. So
okay,
that's only got the one there. So I should add one quickly. But add news article, test. So again, the same sort of thing in a period of time that will update. So I'll show you that in a second. But that is the concept, unlimited articles, whatever it is you want to talk about. So a lot of MSPs are loving the idea of being able to talk about and making sure that you're pushing out the information about crypto locker and advice on what to do there, their wins, their awards, news about offers and products, and whatever it is you want to communicate. That's where you can really start to do that. The future of this particular product will be so that it will start to link it into things like WordPress and other news tools. So you're only having to put it into the one location and it'll feed it out to all those different areas. But at the moment, obviously, it's just doing that in this particular panel.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the test news just came up there and flicked. Yeah.
And if you click on it, it takes
if
them.
I click on it, it goes straight through to the address that I put in.
Perfect. Now,
I'll quickly tell you a part of news is social. It's a basic area where you just put in the fields of your social links, and that if you put one in, it'll put the little icons down the bottom right. It's just another way, since you've got an app in front of everyone's computers, then you can link it through to your social. So we thought that was a nice little important thing. Not sure how utilize it will get, but certainly you can engage them in that way. So the last part is IT apps panel, and this is what I was talking about before, so you sort of get the gist of it. It's all about being able to customize apps per client. Again, it's all about collections. So you can actually have in the screen, well, it's unlimited is the answer to that, but what will happen is if I add another app, so you can add an app quickly, MYOB, whoop, if I can spell. Oh my goodness. So if we add that, it'll drop down to 2 rows of 6, and then it'll scroll. It'll have a scroll bar after that. So that's what happens there.
It scrolls up and down, not left and right.
Yeah, up and down. Yeah, correct. So again, when you actually, I should have shown you there, as you're adding the app, you can have your shell command and your remote session. So in fact, I think, Steve, when you were at the booth, you gave a good example that you had somebody that was never in the office and actually needed to remap their network drives. And so again, it's really up to your mind on what you want to do there in terms of making little 1%ers to help a customer.
Yes. So that was something I thought of, and I know that deleting the mapped drive and then recreating it is technically more than one command, and your thing only allows for like basically a single line. It doesn't allow for like a batch script to be written and put in there when you're doing it as a command shell command. You can run a batch script, but for the people that, oh man, I don't want to have to transfer scripts over their computer, what I've found is if it is something truly as simple as delete the S drive and recreate the S drive, isn't it like pipe or something like that? I always forget what it is, but there's a way that you can run multiple commands in a single line.
Correct, there is, and I remember you talking to our VP of product about that, and it started to go over my head in terms of the technical side, but I'm pretty sure you can. It does require a little bit more effort, but again, that's how you do that, but the value is very much having the apps in there, making it easier and showing that visible value to your customers. Mm-hmm. It has to be said that clients, just like anything that adds value to them, you know, we all think there is MSPs that we do add a lot of value, let's be honest. We keep their operations up and running and going and backing it up and all that sort of jazz. But at an end user level, it can often be forgotten of the effort. We all battle with that. We all battle with having to show them the reports, show them the roadmaps. And so this is the type of thing that just, you know, etches away at the visible value. And the more people that you configure this to, the more they use your app, the more they're reading the news, and the stickier the actual service gets from our experience.
Well, good. So, questions I'm seeing here.
Go for it.
Is it on your roadmap to change the logo itself if I don't want your square with the words letters IT in it?
It will be, yep.
Okay.
At the moment, we're starting with changing the color, and which you'd think is easy, but of course you want to make sure that there's no pixelation in it as you choose whatever color you want to. So it is reasonably easy in the scheme of things, but we'll get that sorted in Q1.
Okay.
So it is on the roadmap, yep.
Now, how does creating tickets work? Because I saw you
well done.
You made a button that said my tickets, and all it's doing is redirecting them to that other client portal.
Correct. So basically, this is in the app. When you log a ticket, it is synchronizing. So conceptually, the product is synchronizing your clients, your users, your ticket types, and some of the other fields in terms of how the ticket gets logged. So when you're actually logging a ticket, let me just explain this first. So under PSA integration is where you see the integrate. So you set up a user. That's where it is able to API sync. Under the PSA defaults is what I'm talking about here. So you've got all these different defaults that you can set. And this is what I'm talking about here, is that you actually have the ability to have ticket type only, which ticket type means type and subtype. So you can have that. You can have the ticket type and subject, or subject only. Okay, now that's a global setting. So it's been interesting that a lot of MSPs just want to potentially have ticket type, and if you do want to, you can then configure it that do you want 2 levels of the ticket types? In ConnectWise, there's 3. There's type, subtype, and item level. Autotask is 2. This is an Autotask instance. And so you've got the full configurability there. So that's where it translates to this log a ticket field, where you have the type, subtype, and so on. You can have, we've got the affected user, which is, often certain people log tickets on behalf of other people, so that helps there. And of course, you can attach a file. It is on our roadmap Q1 to make a couple of changes. We will be having a screen snagit option there. So that will be implemented Q1.
Good.
We will also be, one of the big requirements for all of us as MSPs is the new user forms. And certainly a lot of feedback, I'm sure everyone would sympathize, is that if you stuff it up and get one thing wrong, then you certainly hear about it from the end user. And so accuracy in that regard is super important. So what we'll be doing in that regard is adding a section under here, which will be forms. And conceptually, if you can imagine adding forms, which then get assigned to ticket types and that you can assign to clients. So when the end user, if you've got a ticket type that says new user, they click new user, another window would pop up, enabling them to fill in the additional information and then put that through. So
now,
that's
my ticket types are probably unconventional. So my top level types are break fix, managed services, website stuff, yada yada yada. So that way I can, because I don't want to have a million queues for one guy. I just want to, So could I say, well, this client is break fix, so I don't want them to see the managed services type?
In the current version, no, but that is on our roadmap. That was certainly, it wasn't a common request, but it was something that we also agree with, is that an ability to go over and above what is in your ticketing system is super important. So we will be creating another area, which actually sort of coincides with the forms functionality that we'll be building. So that sort of goes hand in hand, where we'll be able to select the ticket types that you actually want to push and omit ticket types without actually having to change your PSA in our system. And so per client, that's configured that way.
Well,
so sorry, go ahead.
Do we have the ability to have, like, the ticket description? Can we have some stuff pre-populated in there? Like, so we can ask them questions. What did you do to cause this? Does it happen every time? Whatever questions you want to have in that description ready for them to fill out, so that way they can give you the most information that's going to help you as possible.
that's where you would use forms.
Okay.
Right, so that form feature of being able to customize a form for whatever it is. So if there is particular ticket types where you just know they're not giving you the right information, then you create a form that is asking those questions you want to ask. You assign it to the ticket type, and as soon as they select that ticket type, they'll have to give you that additional information. And that's why the power of it'll be one of the killer features of it is that full flexibility to create forms and allocate them based on ticket types.
Okay. Now, so I know you said Q1, I think, for being able to take a screenshot and attach that to the ticket.
Correct. So I'll give you the roadmap in a second back in the Prezzo, but just bearing in mind, Tom, I'll quickly just conceptually so that the viewers understand how this product works is it's syncing your clients, and each client that is synchronized is allocated an activation code. So conceptually, each time the agent, so this piece of software needs to be installed, it first needs an activation code, and then it needs the username and password of the actual end users. This is a sandbox, so it doesn't have, not all of those records have users. So at a user level, it's getting you the, you've got to put that information in. So your first name, last name, and the email address, and it activates. Now, again, when you roll this out by using the Harvester tool that we built, it will auto do all of that sort of stuff out of Active Directory. So it'll pre-authenticate it, ready to go.
What about all of us smaller MSPs that don't work with a lot of Active Directory people?
Yeah, so if there's no Active Directory and you still have an RMM, then you roll out the RMM tool. You would then go to, I'll just quickly show you there. This is at a user level where you can edit the user and actually configure the appearance button apps collection. So that's how that works. At the scenario where you would have a client with no AD, but you do have RMM, you roll it out with your RMM, you package up the activation code as part of that rollout, and what you'll then see is all these agents that are blank that are unassigned. So generally speaking, clients like that will only have, I mean, if they've got 50 staff and they don't have an AD server, you probably need to put one in. But ultimately, they'll be smaller. So you might have 5, 10, 20 people come up in a list once you search on them as a client, and you just go through and allocate the user. Bang, 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 bang. Yeah, it would probably take you, what, like 2 minutes, 5 minutes to just...
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Is there an option to call from the PSA instead of AD? Well, I think that's what he's implying, Johnny, is if you are deploying this out to a client that does not have AD, unless so here's my way of thinking. Unless you are so meticulous that within your RMM or your PSA, you've actually said PC-01 is Steve Taylor's computer, the PSA isn't going to know that this is Steve Taylor's computer. So that's why he's at least given you the ability to hit the allocate user button, because if I'm correct here, where it says name, the leftmost column, that is the computer name.
Correct.
So
and you can,
hypothetically, you should know which users are on the computer, or you can at least look at the last user portion, and you can allocate the user that is using that computer manually at the very least. If the company is using Active Directory, then you would just use the harvester, and it would make the magic happen for you.
Correct. And so a lot of there can be duplicates, and there can be very close names. So we found not all users are in everyone's PSA. So the AD harvest is quite a therapeutic process to go through. It does require a little bit of effort, but what it means is that when you're onboarding clients in the future, instead of having to take Excel spreadsheets and manually or import them that way, then you can use the AD harvester and actually bring your new clients' users all into the PSA using that tool. Now remember, that doesn't automatically push. This is predominantly a pull piece of software. The only pushing is done with the AD harvester, but it goes through a middle section where you have to authorize those users to go to your PSA. So you have full control over doing that. But I think Steve's answer to that is correct.
So, or I was going with this somewhere earlier. I said you've got the ability to use screenshots coming out basically next quarter, Q1 of 2018. Is it on your roadmap to do what some old timers might call moving pictures, videos, or GIFs?
Oh, that's interesting.
So what I would
Hadn't been asked. Why would you need that?
So here's my idea. Someone makes a ticket. There's a button. Can you recreate the issue? Yes. Would you like us to record your microphone? Yes. So now they're
Yes.
talking to you and they're
Got it.
recreating your issue and they're sending all that to you all packaged up with a nice neat bow on it. And now you never have to talk to people again. How great would that be, guys?
It's actually not a bad idea. I think the team would probably just worry about the data size at scale of something like that. But I think
I'm not
that's
really worried about it.
That's where the future's going, and certainly we'd have to play around with that conceptually on how that would work in the back end.
Sure.
Because obviously we're collecting a lot of data across all, and as we grow, it'll just continue to increase. So
throwing this out there,
that's a good idea.
There's a company out there called Pilixo, Pilixo. Don't worry, they're not competition, so you guys can all look it up, pilixo.com. And what it does is they've got a tool called MSP Replay, and I think they might be rebranding that because I know they rebranded the other two things. Anyway, MSP Replay is basically it records the screen of all the computers that you deploy Pilixo onto, but instead of doing like a full-blown 1080p screen cap, it's only recording the pixels that change. Right. So if the mouse moves across the screen, it's only recording these little pixels, and I think it only does 1 frame per second.
Well, there you go. So you'd obviously have to use tools like that. Otherwise, the data just becomes a bit astronomical. But
so maybe you work a partnership out with them and
correct.
license that, so you guys don't have to build something from scratch.
I'm writing down the notes.
I appreciate that. That's one more kangaroo steak you owe me.
Exactly, I do. I need to sort that out. I promised Steve we'd send him one over, so I don't know what state it'll be in when it gets there and how tasty it'll be, but we'll give it a go.
I'm going to open that box up and I'm going to be like, crikey! I'm going to throw it away.
Oh, jeez, mate. So we've got the clients. So again, just to help everyone out, so you've got clients there. Again, you can manage users. You can edit a client at that level and actually allocate appearances, and that's what I was talking about. That's the easiest way to do it. You've got agents that we just looked at. You can download your agents from here. So you've got your XE, MSFi. These will go to the stores. You got your deployment guides here showing you all about how to do that. Under PSA, you've got the PSA integration we looked at before. One of the things we didn't show you is the synchronization. So you can, if there's something going on with the sync or you want to force it, that's syncing, as it says, the ticket types, the clients and the users, etc. Then you can hit the button and it'll synchronize. It goes into a queue based on what's going on the back end, but it's reasonably quick. Certainly with the ticket log, it's important to note that you actually are getting a ticket log. It's reporting back the actual ticket ID. So conceptually, this product is actually all the tickets are going through our servers and then to the PSA. And the reason why we did that is because once again, we learned in terms of friction, in terms of people using the software. If our software is off, or if they kind of log a ticket and it doesn't work, then of course they'll stop using it, right? If they go log ticket and it says error, so that's why it goes, as long as it's on the internet, it's working, it'll log a ticket through. Now, these PSAs out there, they're not really going down. I can't imagine people have got too many war stories in regards to the big boys having issues for a long period of time. But still, the concept is that we just want to make sure that ticket gets through. Once it gets logged on your end, it actually reports back the ticket ID, and that's where the ticket log reports back, and you can look at the detail of the ticket and see what was actually going on. So you can really see at a granular level what's going on in terms of utilization of the software. From a reporting perspective, it's pretty light on at this point in time. It's really just showing you some basic views. One of the things that we will be aiming to bring out in Q1 is, I think one of the things that I always looked at as we invented this product was the amount of calls and tickets being logged via phone or via this product, IT support panel. So in our PSA, we were able to configure source types, and obviously you put phone and you put all the things you need, and so we'll synchronize that data as well. So you'll be able to start to see on a daily, monthly basis on how many people are actually, like, how is that behavior changing over time, and you'll be delighted at the results. So that's reports. So this is basically a view of the system. There's obviously your My Account information. One of the things I'll show you in My Account is that when we send an email to an end user, so if for whatever reason you just wanted to send an email to an end user that is their registration email, you can do that. I sort of recommend probably just do it yourself rather than wasting their time on that. But if you do, in this section here is where you put your information. So any email coming out of our system that goes to your client will be using your default branding of the actual panel, top and bottom of the email with your logo and all that sort of jazz. And in the footer, it's giving you all this information. So whatever information is important for the end user to see, you put that in there. At this point in time, there is only the one login. We should be sorting that out next year in terms of administrating the account. So you generally have the demo, you have a general email login for it, but we will add additional users in the future. So that's basically it, guys, in terms of the actual panel. Before I leave the screen, were there any other questions there, Steve?
Not here, no. I want to see this roadmap.
Let's do it. So this is the roadmap. So the PSA agnostic version will be bringing out end of Q4. So that the only feature that will be missing is that's just for anyone that seems to be off in the wilderness with the different product that we haven't been able to do APIs with in the future. We thought that was important to do off the get-go. The only feature that will miss will be putting in all the details of the ticket straight in. It's coming through the email parser. Okay. I talked about the custom forms per ticket type, the screenshot we talked about, ticket urgency. So there is the urgency as part of the types of your PSA already, but we've had we thought it was important to make sure that you can actually, at an end user level, when they're logging the ticket, select urgency. We didn't actually build it in the first time because, quite frankly, if you have that option, from my experience with having that many users under management, they all just pick urgent anyway. So I thought it was a bit redundant, but apparently it is quite important for a lot of MSPs to do that. So we'll make that change. Config data will be coming through as well. You're already getting the node information, but the config data will be coming through. So we'll get that one out shortly. The color of the logo I talked about. Pop-up alerts will be Q2. So just being able to push those pop-up alerts at will. So, you know, the little toaster messages that can pop up at an end user level. So we'll be looking into that Q2. And of course, further partner and PSA integrations such as IT Glue, etc., and other PSAs, Kaseya BMS. We'll be looking at 2.3. We just want to get through the first functional things first and get to the next one. So I might pass over to you, Andrew. Awesome. You've been very patient, my friend, I have to say. He's sitting there in Toronto, Canada. Shift IT Solutions is the name of his MSP, and I've brought him online just to give you a little bit of an insight into somebody that's actually using the product. So, Andrew, can you hear me?
I can hear you 100%.
Well done, mate.
Andrew Carey we're actually in Oakville, Ontario, about 30 kilometers outside of Toronto. Shift IT Solutions was founded in 2009. We presently are just a little bit north of 2,000 endpoints, about a little bit shy of $3 million a year in business. We're traditionally an MSP based on a single endpoint price per month. We do some custom cloud, et cetera, that we're getting into as well, a little bit of consulting, but only for our customers. We don't do any third party. 100%, we're pretty progressive. We actually flew down and met with Jamie a while back, and he remembered who we were. So the gist of it is I'm really big on end user experience, and we spent a huge amount of time creating user documentation that absolutely nobody read. So it was very refreshing when Jamie mentioned what they were doing, because it gave us an avenue to get in front of them on the desktop with our information. It's the kind of surprising thing that happened was the enthusiasm for the news ticker and being able to actually put their company information updates in the news ticker as well, which is terrific because it means people are looking at the support panel. I've actually hired someone to actually take all these feeds, not only ours, but to actually interact with the customers if they want information to go up. Secondary to that, the other really cool thing is that everybody wants their applications on that bottom panel that we can link to. I hadn't thought about doing the remapping. That's a cool idea as well. I'll tell my engineers to put that in place. We right now, based on our numbers, I try to get about 300 endpoints, 300 endpoints per support desk person. And if they can handle more, great. They make more money for it because we pay based on incentives. But the goal is if I can get my guys taking care of 400 endpoints, then we can continue to grow and I don't have to keep hiring. They make a bit more money, and calls are a time vampire. I see that in the portal when I'm doing the timesheets all the time. So anything that we can do to make it easier to push that form of email coming in as opposed to them picking the phone up and calling is very much in our profitability curve to increase it. So, and we're all about profitability. So it's been a good experience. Really happy working with Jamie and Dean and the guys on this.
Thanks, Andrew. That's brilliant. With I can't actually see the comments there. Was anybody asked any questions in that regard?
None, actually.
Very good. Well, very well spoken. And thank you, Andrew. And I do appreciate your time to come on this webinar. So I guess, Steve, that is, we've gone through the demo, gone through it. So thank you. Of course, we've got, if anybody's interested in booking a free trial and going through that process, that's a great way of, we can go through a more in-depth demo as well if you want to. Then we can really lift up the hood and talk about your MSP in more detail and find out what you're trying to do and see if there's alignment there with what we're doing with this product. Certainly, if there's any way, at the very least, that we could help and share some lessons in terms of scaling an MSP, then happy to help in that regard as well. So.
Now, with that said, I just sent out a little thing to everyone if they want to click that button, make it a little easier to hop onto your website, and they can book that trial. Let's go back to the pricing real quick, because I've got tough questions for you on pricing. It seems like all these vendors that want to work with us managed service providers just think that we're rolling in the dough. I think you are at $349 if we want to use this thing correctly, which would include all the features. Connect Booster's a couple hundred. Your PSA and RMM's probably costing you several hundred a month. When does the bleeding stop, Jamie?
Look, I guess that it's important. I mean, and as I said to you before, I understand that they're all chipping away. But look, in the scheme of things, if you're turning over millions of dollars, if you're only at sort of a $500,000 or $1 million, then obviously it hurts a little bit more. A lot of these investments can be absorbed quite easily as you get a wee bit bigger. And of course, growth is what you should be targeting. But look, I mean, my MSP, I think we spend about $4,000 a month just in PSA tool, right? Sorry,
Sure.
It's not PSA, RMM tool, etc. So we were trying to keep it down the lower end. And as I said to you before, it's very much around ROI. So when we sat there looking at our product, we thought, okay, well, we obviously need to charge something for it. And we're more focused on trying to keep it at the low end by but certainly focusing on the ROI. And so there's a couple of comments. One is most of the tools that an MSP uses are internal tools. For the most part, they are just internal, and they're all wonderful. They're absolutely needed. I mean, it's very difficult to run a business without a PSA or some level of ticketing or so on. You need your accounting systems. You need all these sort of things to do it. But we do believe that as part of your budget, you need to start thinking about allocating to a end user client portal app. This is the future. The end users have been starving for a better experience. It is why, again, I said to you, we've gone to the effort of actually commercializing it. But it is a tool that is very different from all the other ones that you're using. All the other ones are, for the most part, internal, and they might have a basic client view of it, which demonstrates some value there for you. But when you can give your clients an actual tool that they're using day in, day out, I can only go back to the ROI examples and say to you, you have to look at the productivity that you'll get by reducing phone calls. Every minute that you save translates to a huge amount. And if your mindset is around growing the business, then you need to set up these types of platforms to ensure that you can grow the business. I invented it because we were spiraling to some degree out of control. It's what happens when you get to a certain size. It's messy getting a lot of tickets a day over the phone. It's messy getting them over email. Okay, so the more you can start to get that traffic going through, the easier it is for your business. So I would say to you that whilst there is an investment for our software that is a level we think is fair and reasonable based on the ROI, there is a cost, and it's a reasonable cost. But the cost is not the price of the product. The cost is you not doing something about it. And it's this age-old sort of thing that you say to people, but it's true because I've been through it all. I mean, everyone that's on the call and watching this video, there will be MSPs from size 1 person through to 40, through to 100, through to bigger. And so I've been on the journey 1 to 40, so I know what that feels like. I don't have experience past that, but from 1 to 40 is your big transition as a company, right? It's where you start to put in proper management teams and all those sorts of things. And I know what it feels like along every part of that journey. And the more you can put in process to help you scale, the better. And I would be putting it to you that that considering charging it is something that would be it's well received in the sense that because you're giving the client something. Now, I'm not talking about charging a huge amount. You might say, okay, the client's paying me $500 a month, charge them $20 a month. And say, for $20 a month flat fee, I'm going to give you your own portal. I have to cover the cost of it, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. But look, it's a low enough, it shouldn't be an issue. You're not really asking them either, I have to say. You're kind of saying, look, it's $20, but I'm customizing this. We're enhancing our service. Now, if they're paying $2,320 a month, you could probably get away with $100. Now, our average size of clients is about $2,000 a month, which is why we were able to charge $100 on average, because to them it was a price that was kind of like, okay, whatever, add it. But remember, you're giving them something that's customized for them. So if you just charged, if you had 50 customers and you had 5 big ones, and you're paying my investing in my software at say $350, you could probably charge just those 5 clients $50 each and cover the cost for the most part, or $100 each. So that's just one way of doing it. There's as I sort of gave the list before, there's so many ways that you can actually get the ROI that. And the experience, I mean, you got to think about churn too and signing up new business. If you sign up a new client, on average, they tend to be about $1,000 a month because you were able to differentiate yourself and you won a deal and you actually got down to the final cut because you presented yourself more innovatively, bang, ROI. If you don't lose a customer that was kind of saying, guys, you're not proactive, I don't see any visibility, like what's going on? Which we win deals like that all the time because smaller MSPs are just not focusing on that type of stuff, right? They're just not. So if you're able to then reduce churn, that $1,000 a month that you stopped from leaving the door, which just makes it harder to grow, is also a part of it. So the profound effect that you can create by having an end user tool that's customized per user, again, I feel like that's where the magic happens, is significant. So I think you've got to look at it from an ROI perspective and not look at it from an investment perspective. And you've got to look at it finally as the last, well, I don't know what the last piece of the puzzle will be, but for me right now, I do believe, and I started this presentation saying it is the last piece of the puzzle of the MSP stack. You have to do something for the end user. I think it's actually kind of embarrassing.
Can I say something for a sec?
Yeah, go for it.
We did not charge our customers anything extra for this. And the reason for that is that the implementation of this product is purely selfish to reduce our phone calls, because my guys can handle more and my guys get incentive-based pay. So if they can handle more, they make more money. So plain and simple.
And look, that's a great example. Every MSP has a different view on it. Once you get to a certain size, reducing phone calls in and of itself is just worth the price of the ticket. And so, of course, so that's probably what I'd say there, Steve. I hope that helps, and certainly, yeah.
It does, but I do want to, excuse me, I do have a little rebuttal with you. So I'm looking at the competition. Okay, I've done the math for the parts that you have versus the parts that they have. I can get their Windows and Mac software and the news portion for $238 a month, and that covers unlimited end users. And I guess that's where I don't understand why you are charging based on the number of agents. I get it, yours. Let's just say, for lack of argument, yours works better. Why do we have to pay for the number of devices that this thing gets deployed on, when at the end of the day, like, you're not really doing anything differently? I don't think. I mean, we're paying you for the platform. Why can't we just have the platform and use it all we need to?
Mate, it's a fantastic challenger question. You're pushing me. Look, first off, it's a technical reason. It is an agent. It's more like an RMM tool, so I can't comment on what others are doing, but I can just say that in the way in which we've built the product, it's very much an agent-based product. As you could see by the fact that it's pulling back to your servers and making sure that it's got the right configuration, it
so is the other one.
Yep. Well, again, I can only comment on what we've done here. And so
Okay.
the answer is that it, over time, based on more utilization, so more agents, puts more utilization on the back end of the actual platform itself. And so to a degree, there has to be acknowledgement that the more you use, the more it takes to deliver the awesomeness, which is the solution. So that has been factored into it. In terms of why, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier in the piece, why you should invest in a different model. Well, the result that I'm showing you on the screen there, that's why. I mean, if you're buying the product just to tick a box and say, well, I've got a client portal solution or an app, then I don't think that's the point. So ours is very much an app. The competitors start off giving you a web portal, which again demonstrates that there's a lack of understanding of why people don't go to web portals. And the other thing I've noticed is that, remember, I can't really comment on competition because it's not like I know the inner workings of it. But ultimately, we had a lot of people using the competitor. So we're new to market. We're giving you an option. We challenge the status quo. But they're saying that they're not getting a reduction in phone calls. They're saying that they're not getting an improved customer experience. And so we're already getting feedback saying, yes, I get it. This looks better. It feels better. It's more configurable. I get it now in terms of the actual behavioral issues that we're changing. So in terms of the licensing, it's just the way that we've chosen to do it. So like it or hate it, it's the most logical way of being able to scale the business, and the most logical way of actually being able to do it. We've given packs of licensing so that it's abundant. so that you're not constantly worrying about how much you're actually paying. Most MSPs will fall into a certain size range, and therefore you can pretty much use this product feeling comfortable that the price is the price without it constantly going up. It's visible, it's on the internet. We're not hiding anything in regards to it, but we also want to be around for the long run. We want to be a premium experience. We want to be innovating. We want to be churning through our roadmap. We want to be building a great company. And so if even at that level you want to, for people out there that want to actually be working with a great company, then of course, you set a line in the sand and you do it. So look, I think the summary is just you'd have to look at the value that you get, which is on the screen here. And if any of that resonates with you, that's why you'd buy it, not because of ticking a box.
Okay. Now, 2 more questions I have.
Go for it.
One, what about the little guy? What about the MSP that has 100 or fewer agents, but they want to start getting this stuff in place now?
So so there's a couple of things for anybody watching this live or other. If you have less, so our starting pack is 500 agents. If you have less than that, we will do a 250 agents pack for you for $149. You need to ask us for that, and we'll do that deal for you, so you can get started. And if you would like to get in contact with us soon, we will actually give you the first 3 months at half price, and we'll give you IT News Panel and Apps Panel free for 12 months. So you just need to contact us, and you just need to say that you watched the webinar. There's no end date on that. You just have to reference, I watched Steve's webinar and thought it was great and want to take advantage of that offer.
So that's fantastic. So just to clarify, and that was actually going to be my second question. So to clarify, for many of my viewers, they are smaller MSPs. So
Understood.
Even though your smallest package on the site is 500, you will let us get in on a 250 agent package for $149. The first 3 months are half price, so that makes it approximately $75 a month. And
Correct.
For the first 12 months, for the first year, that's all they're paying to get all the features built into it. Well, all the current features.
And on top of that, if you deploy the software within the first 4 weeks, we'll give you a 3-month money-back guarantee.
Okay. So as long as we deploy it within a month, right? Then we get 90 days. We get 3 months to figure out, is this really for me? And we can take our ball, we can go home. Not only our ball, but all of our money too.
Exactly. But you'll be delighted. I have to say, guys, I mean, I understand that it's a new category. I understand that it requires a little bit of thought to understand it, but I can't speak passionately enough about why I believe it's so important, and why that you should at the very least get double your investment in terms of an ROI at the very least, because it is that powerful.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. As soon as you have an agnostic version, I'm gonna sign up with those prices that you just mentioned. And if you are ready to beta test an agnostic version, I'm your man.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
So that said, guys, I met Jamie at Autotask Community Live this year in Miami just a couple months ago, and I really like this product. I've used the competition. There was 0.0% end user buy-in in the other product. And when I tried using it, because that one also had a technician portal, when I tried using it, I don't know if it was because it doesn't work well with Autotask, it works better with ConnectWise, or because I don't know. But it sucked. It just absolutely sucked. My experience was abysmal. This software at the price that he just offered us is absolutely fantastic. I am buying it. I recommend you guys sign up. I'm not getting anything for this. He doesn't give me commission if you guys go sign up. The commission is you guys just got a sweet price and a sweet deal. Okay, so that's what I have to say there. Jamie, I appreciate you coming on and doing this. The same goes for you.
Andrew.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Andrew. I was just getting to the other screen. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on with us. I know that you didn't get to enjoy the spotlight like I promised, but your input was valuable.
All I want in life is an unfair advantage. You can have the spotlight. Thank you.
I like it. I like it. Jamie, I will be speaking with you shortly. Everyone else here, will he email the attendees the promo? I will, because Jamie doesn't get access to anyone that signed up and registered. Because as I told him and as I've told all the other vendors that have come on, I don't give that out. That is, I don't play that game because I don't like getting unsolicited emails. I know you guys don't either. So with that said, please enjoy your Thanksgiving. For those of you that are in America, for those of you that aren't, don't call us on Thursday or probably not Friday either. And next week we have one webinar on Thursday because everyone is still going to be too full to come to a webinar on Tuesday. We're going to talk about another processes and procedures 2.0 video. We're going to do onboarding, how to do a successful onboarding. So thank you so much for attending, everybody. This is going to go up on YouTube for anyone that missed parts. I'll get that on before Thanksgiving. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful day and a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks again.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you, guys. I wish you all the best.